Hello and welcome to another card reveal. So we've got about, I think, 10 cards total, along with this nice piece of information that you'll see on screen now, introducing a new keyword effect. So we've got Burial Rite and Reanimate. They're the two effects. Both, I believe, are going to be exclusive to Shadow, although Reanimate may not be. Not 100%, but let's take it that way. I'm pretty sure they're both exclusive to Shadow based on everything I've seen so far. So Burial Rite is if you have a follower in your hand, an open space in your area, put that follower into play, that follower loses all effects and then destroy that follower. Reanimate, randomly summon a copy of one of the highest cost allied followers that has been destroyed during this match, and costs less than or equal to the reanimate value. So Burial Rite's great, using that to discard things, you know, instantly destroy them later, set them up to be reanimated basically. So that's a really interesting one to have as a mechanic. Plus, I'm guessing that'll also boost your shadows quite effectively, just because the Burial Rite should trigger that. And then Reanimate, bringing things back, is just a really nice way to get extra value out of the cards that you've already gained some value out of. But we'll take a look at some of the cards and we'll talk about that as we go. So first one I want to talk about is the Shadow Legendary that I missed last video. A few people did notice that. I completely skipped over it when I was looking for some reason. I don't know how I missed it, but it's going to be called Abyss Straddler in the English translation, which is quite nice. An 8-drop 1/5, so the 1/5 stat line ended at 8-drop, but its effect is what is meant to make up for that. At the end of your turn, perform Necromancy 4, gain +3/+0. Whenever this follower attacks, if this follower has at least 10 attack, destroy this follower. Last word, deal X damage to the enemy leader, X equals the follower's attack, and then it's the exact same for the evolve effect. So, assuming you play this on 8, you evolve it, you get a 4/6. Best case scenario, you're going to be getting a couple of attacks in, and then getting the proc with the last word for the 10 damage. But worst case scenario, you're getting a 4 damage to their face. You're going to be able to use this as a trade material and have the bonus of if it doesn't get killed, it's going to gain attack anyway. So if you're using this as a trade, I'd say averagely, and you're playing it on 4/6, you're going to probably trade into something with less than 6 attack, so 5 attack or less. And you're going to keep this thing alive. It's going to go to a 7/1 after you've done a trade like that, and you're going to be left with a good 7 damage to their face, which is just a nice kind of finisher. I don't know whether this is going to be as strong as necessary, but if you do combo it with those reanimate effects and stuff that we saw earlier, with the Necromancy 4 gain, that could be really interesting, but we'll just have to wait and see if this works out in a Shadow deck. Maybe as one of in some Shadow decks, maybe a new archetype, maybe a more control orientated one. Who really knows, but it's definitely interesting to see. Then we've got Gloomy Necromancer, a 2-drop 2/1 bronze Shadowcraft card, Fanfare, Burial Rite, draw a card. So Burial Rite, as we looked at earlier, is to basically discard a card, sort of. It's summon it, strip it of its effects, destroy it. So the extra requirement of having a board space is always important. And then you get to draw a card off this one. So this might be a nice card to set up early game plays for Reanimate. But who knows? It's going to be a tricky card, being a 2/1 stat line with a 4/3 evolve, a pretty standard 2-drop. And unless Burial Rite is a super effective keyword, I don't know whether it's going to be quite enough to see a lot of play. Although, if we do see a full Burial Rite Reanimate deck, I'm sure this will be included. Then we have Skull Ring, 3-drop countdown 2, Fanfare, summon 2 skeletons, last word, Necromancy 2, Reanimate 2. So this is where you could combo it with that other 2-drop with some good effectiveness. I mean, you're going to play that, discard another 2-drop, when this triggers, last word, Necromancy 2, and then Reanimate 2. You could see that kind of value come out of it. And if they are tying Necromancy to Reanimate like this quite frequently, it's going to be hard to keep your shadows up, which is going to be quite unfortunate. The Summon 2 Skeletons, though, makes up for that. So I really like this card. It's basically your Bone Chimera replacement in some form, because the Fanfare Summon 2 Skeletons is good, and the last word, get a Reanimate, is also quite good. You're going to be at least getting 3 skeletons minimum. Then you have the 5-drop spell, Sow Death, Reap Life. Reanimate X. This value equals your current turn number. So this is where I think things get a little interesting with this card. You could quite easily combo this off with some other cards to proc the Reanimate for a decent value, especially if you say turn 5+, where you're going to get a 5-drop. It's just going to be a really interesting card to see. I reckon as a 5-drop, it's an average spell. Comboed with the Burial Rite though, I reckon it has a lot of potential. Then we have Silver Cog Spinner, a 4-drop 4/3, so not the best of the best stat lines. Fanfare, restore 2 defense to your leader. If Resonance is active for you, recover 1 play point. So Portalcraft is getting the recover 1 play point, which seems to be a theme for Chronogenesis, and I believe, reading some of the developer interviews, that is the case. They're looking at spreading that recover play points mechanic across a few different classes, with Blood seeming to get the majority at this stage, but who knows how the next lot of reveals will go. But I think this is solid. Restoring 2 defense to your leader is always good, and then getting the extra recovery on the play point in Resonance basically makes this a 3 cost, effectively, if you're playing this on 4 or 5, or even mid to late game, where it has a little bit less of an impact, but still, the restoring is always a good feature to have. So I don't know how to completely value this card. It just depends on how Portalcraft shakes up as an entire deck to whether this will be a viable option. Then we have Fervent Machina Soldier. I believe that's the pronunciation for that one. A 3-drop 2/3, so a pretty average 3-drop stat line. Fanfare, put a random artifact card from your deck into your hand. So another artifact pulling card, basically what all the Portalcraft cards are doing, either placing artifacts in the deck or pulling them at random. So nothing too fancy. I do enjoy the artwork, but other than that, it doesn't have ward. It's just a standard 2/3. In an artifact deck, I guess you'd run it if there isn't other artifact cards that you'd run in the same slot. So not bad, probably not good. Hard to kind of gauge it without putting it into an artifact deck and seeing all of them. Then we have Undefined Subject, a 5-drop 3/6 silver Portalcraft card. Whenever a card is put into your deck, gain +1. So this one's actually interesting. Whenever a card is put into your deck, gain +1. I'm assuming this has to be on board based on its effect. Otherwise, if it is in hand effect, that could be pretty crazy comboed with artifacts, but if it's just on board, not quite as crazy. Especially with that 3/6 stat line, I'm sure it'll have to be on board. Otherwise, you'd make it probably a 0 cost and do something similar to Fairy Dragon. But interesting one at that. A 5-drop, maybe you could combo this off with artifacts, but it's probably going to be a little too heavy. It just depends on whether the late game is going to be a lot more common, or whether we will see a pretty consistent turn 5, turn 6 sort of closings for a lot of games. Then we have Ancient Amplifier, the 1-drop amulet for Portalcraft. Count down to 3 at the end of your turn, randomly put 2 of the following card into your deck: Ancient Artifact, Mystic Artifact, Analyzing Artifact, Radiant Artifact. So again, another randomly place, 2 of those 4 cards into your deck. Nothing too crazy. I think this is great because it is a 1-drop. You play it out, procs on 3, put artifacts in your deck, combo it with whatever you want on 3 or 4 to pull random artifacts, that sort of thing. Definitely has some potential. Not a bad option. Of course, in an artifact deck. I think we'll see this played if there isn't anything else to fit that one slot. So, not a bad card. Otherworld Rift, 5-drop banish for Portalcraft. So, they look like they're pretty happy with having 5-drop spells, as Portalcraft and Haven both have banish effects for those, with extra effects of course, which this one is put a random artifact card, which fits the Portalcraft theme. So, I think this card may see some form of play if you need to remove things effectively, especially if last words are such a big thing. This could be a really good card to just have in as a tech, even as a 1 or 2 of. It fits with your artifact synergy, you're going to get that banish, and it could work out quite nicely. Then we have Chain Lightning. Really nice artwork, I think, for Chain Lightning. It's a little different to what you'd normally see, but it's another 5-drop spell, this time for Rune. Deal 3 damage to an enemy, put a Chain Lightning into your hand. If you have 3 or less other cards in your hand. So this could be infinite value, basically, Chain Lightning, as long as you have less than 3 or less cards in your hand. So if you have 3, pull Chain Lightning, you go to 4, you play another card, then you play Chain Lightning again, you get another one in your hand, so on, so on. You could infinitely Chain Lightning as long as you've got it. Plus, since it is to an enemy, you can direct this to face. Comboing this with Oz would also be quite interesting, although the problem with that might be the fact that Oz pulls more cards, so maybe we'll see a variant of Oz that isn't relying on Dirt Rune and that's actually going to be purely spell damage based. That could be really interesting. But overall, I really enjoy the idea of this card, and I hope that it sees some form of play. I believe that is the last card for this video too, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'm sure we'll have some more card reveals very soon, and I'll catch you guys then. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch ya.